The fork trembled in my hand as I stared across the dining table. 7 days since Martha's funeral. 7 days of expecting comfort from the children we've raised. Instead, my son-in-law, Perry, leaned back in his chair like he already owned the place. "Harold," his voice cut through the silence. "We need to talk." My daughter, Sienna, wouldn't meet my eyes. She fidgeted with her wedding ring. The roast beef I'd prepared grew cold. "What's on your mind, son?" The word felt foreign coming from me. "This house." He looked around the dining room, where Martha had hosted countless dinners, where memories lived in every corner. "It's too big for one person." My chest tightened. "I've lived here 23 years. "Exactly." Perry smiled, but the look held no warmth. "Time for a change. Sienna and we need space. Real space. Not that cramped apartment we're stuck in." I looked to my daughter, searching for compassion. She finally lifted her head. Martha's blue eyes looked right through me. "Perry's right, Dad. This place is... It's too much for you now." Too much. As if 23 years of payments and maintenance meant nothing. "Where exactly do you expect me to go?" I set down my fork. Perry leaned forward, sensing weakness. "Senior living, assisted care, somewhere appropriate for your age." "Appropriate?" I repeated, tasting the bitterness. "Dad, you're 67. Mom's gone. You shouldn't be rattling around this big house alone." Sienna's voice carried forced patience. "Look, Harold, we're being practical here," Perry continued, pacing to the window overlooking Martha's rose garden. "You sell this place. Downsize to something managed. Everyone wins." "Everyone wins," the phrase echoed, "except the man who built this life." "You could have a nice little apartment." Sienna rushed on, her words rehearsed. "No maintenance. No worries. Freedom." They were trying to call my exile liberation. I searched my daughter's face for the caring girl I raised, but she was gone. "And if I refuse?" The silence was tense. Sienna's voice hardened. "Dad, don't make this more difficult than it needs to be." Perry cleared his throat. His next words were hammer blows. "Now that your wife is dead, grieve, pack your suitcases, and never come back." I waited for Sienna to protest, to show some fragment of the daughter I'd raised. Instead, she nodded. "Perry's right, Dad. It's time." Something inside me crystallized in that moment. It wasn't broken. It turned hard, cold, and purposeful. I stood slowly. "I see." I walked to the hallway closet, pulled on my jacket, and left. The door closed with a soft click. I stood on my own porch, looking back at the warm, glowing windows. My house. My family. Former family. I drove away, done with looking backward. Back in my study, the silence pressed against the walls. I sank into my armchair. The graduation photo on my desk caught the lamplight. Sienna, Martha, and me. I remember the costs. $89,000 for her education. She hugged me afterward, crying, "I can't believe you did this for me, Dad. I promise I'll take care of you and Mom when you're older. Family takes care of family." $65,000 5 years later for their house down payment. They couldn't qualify a loan. "We'll pay you back, Dad. Every dollar," she swore. $23,000 for the wedding. Martha, already ill, insisted. "She's our only daughter, Harold. Let's give her a day she'll never forget." I walked to the filing cabinet. Numbers don't lie. They tell an honest story. College, $89,000. House down payment, $65,000. Wedding, $23,000. Smaller loans, cars, Perry's failed business, $38,000. Total, $215,000. Nearly 2/3 of my life savings poured into my daughter's happiness. My phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. Thanks for understanding, Dad. This is really for the best. We'll help you find a nice place tomorrow. Understanding. As if I'd agreed to be exiled. Something cold settled in my chest, replacing the hurt with focus. They thought they knew Harold Butler, the easy mark. They were wrong. 35 years in banking had taught me things about money and leverage they couldn't imagine. I opened my laptop. It was time to see exactly what my investments had purchased. Dawn found me staring at the ceiling. By 7 a.m., I was in my best Navy suit, driving to Desert Community Bank, where I'd worked until retirement 3 years ago. I met James Morrison, a trusted former colleague. I need to understand my financial exposure on some loans I guarantee, I told him. My daughter's mortgage and everything related to my son-in-law's business. James pulled up the files. His eyebrows rose immediately. Well, since you co-signed on Sienna's original mortgage and the home equity line, I can certainly discuss your liability. Home equity line? I hadn't known about that. The mortgage payments have been irregular for 8 months, James continued. Currently 60 days behind. That puts your credit rating at risk. What about Perry's business accounts? James paused. The equipment loan you guaranteed for Morgan Construction Services defaulted 4 months ago. That's $78,000 in principal plus accumulated interest. The numbers hit hard. They hadn't just used the money I gave them. They'd borrowed more against the house, and were failing to pay it back. The home equity line was maxed out 6 months ago, James added. $45,000 drawn against the property. Your liability exposure is significant, over $120,000 if they continue defaulting. There's more. James's voice dropped. Perry filed for business bankruptcy 2 weeks ago. It protects him, but your guarantees remain active. 2 weeks ago, right when they started planning their ambush. Hypothetically, I asked, if these accounts went into full default, what happens to the property? Foreclosure proceedings within 90 days. After all debts are paid, there might be only $10,000 to $15,000 equity remaining. $10,000 from a house I'd put $65,000 down on. I shook James's hand. I appreciate your candor. I need a comprehensive liability report. Walking to my car, my steps were purposeful. Sienna and Perry thought they cornered a grieving old man. Instead, they'd awakened something much more dangerous. A former banking analyst who now understood exactly how precarious their position really was. I pulled out my phone and scrolled to my contacts. It was time to call an attorney specializing in financial recovery. The game had just changed. My old calculator sat beside a legal pad filled with figures. 35 years of analyzing credit risks taught me to read between the lines. The story these documents told was worse than I'd imagined. Perry's construction business had collapsed 6 months ago. It wasn't a slow decline. It was a disaster. A $50,000 equipment loan ballooned to $78,000 with penalties and interest. He'd used 4 different credit cards to keep the business alive, racking up $23,000 in revolving debt. The minimum payments on all this consumed nearly 40% of their monthly income, assuming Perry could find work. But it was the mortgage that showed their true desperation. The house, the one I'd provided a $65,000 down payment for, was 3 months behind on payments. Foreclosure proceedings could begin in 60 days. Worse, there was a home equity line of credit, HELEC, I'd never known about, maxed out at $45,000. They'd borrowed against the house to cover Perry's business debts, then borrowed more to cover the borrowing. The numbers painted a picture of people drowning, making desperate choices. Perry's bankruptcy filing 2 weeks ago protected him from business creditors, but my guarantees remained active. They didn't just want my house, they needed it. My house wasn't about preference. It was about their survival. My phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. Dad, we found a lovely assisted living place in Tempe. Much more appropriate than that big empty house. Can we schedule a tour tomorrow? Much more appropriate. The urgency was clear. They weren't thinking about my comfort. They were calculating square footage against mortgage payments. I walked to the filing cabinet where Martha and I kept important papers, and found copies of every loan agreement I co-signed. My potential liability was staggering, around $140,000 in claims. But liability worked both ways. As co-signer, I had legal rights. Rights to demand financial information and protect my interests, rights they never expected me to use. The Arizona revised statutes were quite clear. Co-signers could demand immediate payment or dissolution of guaranteed obligations under certain circumstances, such as concealing debts or using guaranteed credit for unauthorized purposes. My phone rang. Sienna. Hi, Dad. Did you get my text about the tour? I did. My voice sounded calmer than I felt. Wonderful. They have availability next week. You could be settled in by month's end. Sienna, I asked, are you and Perry having financial difficulties? Silence. Why would you ask that, Dad? Because I care about your welfare as your father, and as someone who's helped support your financial decisions over the years. We're fine. Just looking for more space for our future. A future built on my house, my money, and my destroyed trust. I see. Well, we'll talk more soon about the tour tomorrow. I'll let you know. I hung up. Tuesday morning, I was ready. My coffee was steaming when the phone rang. Sienna. Good morning, Sienna. Dad? I need to discuss something important with you about the house situation and some financial concerns Perry and I are facing. Financial concerns? I'm listening. Dad, we're going through a difficult period. Perry's construction work has been inconsistent. We need help, just temporarily. $15,000 would get us back on track. No, Sienna. Silence. I'm sorry. What? I said. No, I won't be lending you money. Dad, I don't think you understand. We could lose our house. You've always helped us. $215,000 worth of help, to be precise. That was then. Dad, what's wrong with you? This isn't like you. We're family. The word she'd forgotten when ordering me to leave. Are we? Of course we are. Dad, please. We just need $15,000 to catch up payments. No means no. Real desperation broke through. The mortgage company called yesterday. We have 2 weeks before they start foreclosure proceedings. I'm begging you. Have you considered downsizing? Perhaps something more appropriate to your current income. Dad, you can't be serious. That house is our home, our future. You helped us buy it. Sometimes circumstances change. I've made my decision. This is about Sunday, isn't it? About what Perry said. Dad, he didn't mean it. Goodbye, Sienna. I hung up, turned off the ringer, and returned to my paper. Outside, a mockingbird sang in Martha's rose garden. She always said the garden needed to be ruthlessly pruned. Over the next 2 days, the notifications began pouring in. As guarantor, the system flagged me when they applied for emergency loans. 3 different banks, all denied within hours. I drove past Perry's construction site. He stood beside a foundation, frantically gesturing on the phone. A man under pressure makes mistakes. I went to a local coffee shop and spoke with Margaret Walsh from First National. Your son-in-law, Perry Morgan, she said, confirming my suspicions. High-risk case. Debt-to-income ratio approaching 60%. Recent bankruptcy. We couldn't touch it with a 10-foot pole. Between you and me, Harold, they're looking at foreclosure inside 2 weeks. she whispered. If they'd had a qualified cosigner, someone with real assets and clean credit, we might have worked something out. The irony was sharp. They had one, and they'd just tried to throw him out. I passed their apartment complex. Sienna's car was smoking, the hood raised, another expense they couldn't afford. I pulled up my credit monitoring service. 7 loan applications, 7 denials in 48 hours. Each inquiry lowered their credit score, tightening the noose. My phone buzzed. A text from Sienna. Dad, can we please talk? I know you're angry about Sunday, but we're family. Families help each other through difficult times. I deleted the message. Where was that sentiment when they were ordering me to pack? The phone rang again. I watched it ring 7 times. The voicemail followed. Dad, it's me. Look, I know we got off on the wrong foot Sunday. Maybe Perry was too direct about the house situation, but we're really struggling here. I've never asked you for anything without paying it back. She'd forgotten the $73,000 in unpaid loans I'd written off as gifts. Friday evening, 7:30 p.m., the time when desperate men abandon pride. I let the phone ring 3 times before answering. Harold Butler. Harold, we need to talk. It was Perry, his voice thick with failure. I'm listening. Look, I know we got off on the wrong foot Sunday. Maybe I was too direct about the house situation, but we're family, and families help each other through difficult times. Is that what we are, Perry? Of course, Harold. Listen to me. We're in serious trouble here. The banks, none of them will work with us. Something about our debt-to-income ratio, credit inquiries. I don't understand all the financial terminology. I understood it perfectly. 60% debt to income was a death sentence in the current lending market. Financial terminology can be confusing. Harold, we need $15,000, just temporarily. We'll sign papers, pay interest, whatever you want. But if we don't get help soon, we lose everything. Their house, their credit, their comfortable assumptions about my endless generosity, all gone. As I recall, Perry, you told me to pack my suitcases and never come back. Silence. That was a misunderstanding. I was stressed about the house being too big for you, worried about your safety, rattling around alone in all that space. Even his apology was condescending. Interesting interpretation. Harold, please. Martha would have wanted you to help us. She loved Sienna. She wouldn't want to see us lose our home. Using my dead wife as leverage was an impressive level of audacity. Martha's gone, Perry. I make my own decisions now. What's happened to you? His voice was desperate. This isn't the Harold I know. The Harold who helped with college, the wedding, the house down payment. The Harold who wrote checks without question, who never demanded accountability. That Harold had died Sunday evening. Perhaps you never knew me as well as you thought. This is about Sunday, isn't it? About what I said. Harold, I'm sorry. I was wrong. I should never have suggested you leave your own house. Shouldn't have suggested it, not shouldn't have meant it. Your apology is noted. Then you'll help us. No. Why not? He exploded. You have the money. You know what you do. $300,000 in savings, maybe more. What's $15,000 to you? How do you know my account balance, Perry? Sienna mentioned. Look, that doesn't matter. What matters is you can save us, and you're choosing not to. As if generosity was an obligation. You're right. I am choosing. You son of... He caught himself, breathing hard. Harold, I'm trying to be respectful here, but you're pushing me. We're talking about your daughter's future. Your grandson's inheritance. Grandchildren that didn't exist from a daughter who'd ordered me banished. Are you threatening me, Perry? I'm explaining reality. If we lose this house, If our credit is destroyed, if we're forced into bankruptcy, that affects everyone, including you. I think our conversation is finished. Wait, Harold, just tell me why. Why won't you help us? What did we do to deserve this? Perhaps you should ask yourself why your loan applications keep getting rejected. Another long silence. What do you mean by that? He asked, suspicion replacing panic. Exactly what I said. Good evening, Perry. I disconnected the call. My phone buzzed with a text. Perry, this isn't over, old man. Not by a long shot. I smiled and deleted the message. He was right. This was just the beginning. Saturday morning, I put Perry's threat into perspective. If he wanted to play hardball, I'd show him what professional-level strategy looked like. My first stop was the Public Library's Business Research Center. Desert Vista Construction LLC had a paper trail. The Arizona Corporation Commission showed late payment notices with 3 subcontractors. I cross-referenced this with industry data. Rising costs and labor shortages were squeezing small contractors. At Common Grounds Coffee Shop, I met Bob Henley, a retired city planning customer. The construction business is brutal right now, he confirmed. One violation can shut down a project for weeks. I asked about Desert Vista, and he mentioned concerns about loose safety protocols and late insurance documentation. All weekend, I worked my network. David Marsh at Southwest Insurance Group confirmed Perry was on thin ice. One more missed premium and his coverage lapses, leading to an immediate project shutdown. Sarah Adams at Municipal Licensing noted incomplete safety plans on permit applications. Desert Vista Construction was under immense pressure, walking a regulatory tightrope while drowning in debt. I prepared a simple email to Bob Henley, attaching Desert Vista's public records showing their recent permit delays and safety documentation issues. Purely informational, I wrote. This email would ensure Bob shared his concerns with his former colleagues in planning and safety inspection. Perry would find his company facing regulatory scrutiny designed to drain cash reserves and halt operations. Monday brought the news I'd been waiting for. Perry's pickup sat in his driveway at 3:15 p.m., 2 hours early. I watched him sit motionless for 10 minutes, the defeated slump of a man whose world had just collapsed. The regulatory scrutiny had worked faster than expected, forcing an immediate project shutdown and layoffs. Within minutes, raised voices carried from their house. Their crisis was accelerating. Tuesday morning arrived with Sienna's scream, a sound of pure, anguished disbelief. I monitored from the neighborhood park. Perry had confessed. The $78,000 in hidden business debt, the bankruptcy, the cascade of lies. Their domestic crisis unfolded in silence from my view. Sienna stormed outside, making frantic, desperate phone calls to anyone who might offer salvation. By noon, Perry made 2 trips to the liquor store and 1 to a pawn shop, selling personal items, the classic move of people drowning. That evening, their argument moved to the front porch, voices raised beyond any pretense of privacy. I coiled my garden hose, listening from my own yard. You bankrupted us! $78,000, Perry! Sienna screamed. I was trying to save the business. Everything I did was for our future. Our future? What future? We lost the house in 6 days, Perry. Your father could help us if he wanted to. 1 phone call, 1 transfer, and this whole nightmare disappears. My father? Sienna's laugh held no humor. You ordered him to pack his bags and never come back. You think he's forgotten that? Perry's response was lost as their front door slammed. Sienna remained on the porch, sobbing with the despair of someone whose world had imploded in a single day. I went inside, satisfied. Phase 2 was complete. They'd lost their income, exhausted their credit, and now faced the destruction of their most fundamental relationship. Tomorrow would bring phase 3. Tonight, I'd pour a scotch and appreciate the elegant precision of watching people reap exactly what they'd sown. Justice, it seemed, wore the most beautiful colors. Wednesday evening brought the visitors I'd been expecting. Through my front window, I watched Sienna clutching Perry's arm, both moving with the defeated shuffle of people who had run out of options. The doorbell rang once, a tentative, almost apologetic sound. I adjusted my tie and opened the door. "Thank you for seeing us, Sienna. Perry." I allowed them entry, but made no welcoming gestures. They followed me to the living room. I took my customary chair. Martha's chair remained empty, a silent reminder of what they'd cost me. Perry and Sienna sat on the edge of the couch, looking like children called to the principal's office. "I suppose you have something to discuss." Sienna's composure broke immediately. "Dad, we're in serious trouble. I know we made mistakes." "Mistakes," I repeated with clinical precision. "Interesting choice of terminology. Harold, I need to apologize," Perry said, swallowing his pride. "What I said at dinner about packing your bags, that was completely inappropriate. I was stressed about our financial situation and took it out on you." "You were stressed," I acknowledged. "About what specifically?" Perry's jaw tightened. "Business problems. Debt issues I should have discussed with Sienna earlier." "How much debt, Perry?" $78,000, he finally admitted. "That's substantial. And your employment situation?" "I lost my job Monday." Construction industry problems. Construction industry problems, not regulatory scrutiny triggered by concerned citizens sharing public safety information. Perry still didn't grasp the true scope of his predicament. "Dad, please!" Sienna's voice broke. "We lose the house in 5 days. I've called everyone. Nobody has that kind of money available on short notice. You're all I have left since Mom died. She would have wanted us to stay together, work through our problems." Invoking my dead wife to leverage sympathy. "Your mother valued honesty above all else. She kept meticulous records, insisted on transparency in all financial matters. Dad, I know I haven't been the perfect daughter, but I'm still your little girl. Please don't abandon me when I need you most." "What specifically are you asking me to do?" "Lend us money," Perry quickly interjected. $40,000 would cover the mortgage arrears and give us breathing room to find new employment. That's a substantial sum. "We'll pay you back," Sienna promised. "Whatever terms you want, we'll sign legal documents. Put the house up as collateral." "I see." I leaned back, studying their desperate faces. "And if I refuse?" "Then we lose everything," Sienna whispered. "Our home, our marriage, our future." I stood slowly, walking to the window overlooking Martha's garden. "This is quite a predicament you found yourselves in." For the first time in weeks, I felt the deep satisfaction of perfect justice. "Before I consider your request," I said, turning, "I think you should understand exactly how you arrived at this moment." Sienna looked confused. "What do you mean?" I walked to my desk, opened the drawer, and pulled out the thick manila folder. "Let me show you something interesting." I spread the documents across the coffee table. Monday, March 18th. I visited my former colleague, James Morrison, at Desert Community Bank. Perry's face went pale. "What did you do?" "As co-signer on your loans, I had every legal right to review your financial status. I conducted a professional risk analysis of your situation. Your debt-to-income ratio was approaching 65%. Statistically impossible to sustain. You were analyzing us." Perry's voice was growing horrified. "When Sienna called, requesting $15,000, I'd been expecting it for days. The timing was predictable. You planned to refuse. Perry, You ordered me to pack my suitcases and never return. Did you imagine there would be no consequences for that level of cruelty? I moved to the next page. The banking community in Scottsdale is remarkably interconnected. Margaret Walsh, David Adams, Sarah Morrison, all former clients of mine. You blacklisted us. Perry was standing now, flushed with understanding rage. I shared legitimate concerns about risk factors and payment reliability. Everything I discussed was publicly available information. And Desert Vista Construction was already vulnerable before I shared workplace safety concerns with Bob Henley at City Planning. You got me fired, Perry whispered. I ensured that regulatory authorities had complete information about potential public safety risks. Desert Vista's subsequent problems were entirely their own doing. I showed them my final document, the handwritten strategic timeline. From the moment Perry told me to pack my bags, yes, I planned all of this. You destroyed our marriage, Sienna accused. Your marriage was collateral damage. The primary objective was appropriate consequences for unconscionable behavior. You redefined our relationship that Sunday evening. Perry threw the papers across the room. You're a monster. I'm a professional who applied systematic thinking to a personal problem. You threatened someone you thought was helpless. You discovered otherwise. The room fell silent. Now, I said, returning to my chair with the calm authority of complete victory. Shall we discuss the terms under which I might consider helping you? Perry gathered the scattered papers. What do you want? First, a written apology, public acknowledgement that your treatment of me was inappropriate and cruel. You'll submit it to the neighborhood newsletter and post it on social media. I want you to correct the record about my character and worth. Sienna nodded slowly. Okay, we'll write an apology. Second, you'll treat me with the respect and appropriate courtesy for the family patriarch. No more dismissive comments. No more financial assumptions. Yes, Harold, Perry said through gritted teeth. Third, any assistance I provide comes with conditions. You'll follow my financial guidance, attend counseling for your marriage problems, and maintain employment that I approve of. You want to control our lives. I want to ensure my investment isn't wasted on people who haven't learned from their mistakes. I pulled out my checkbook. I'm prepared to provide $25,000, enough to prevent foreclosure, and give you breathing room to rebuild your lives properly. Sienna's eyes widened. But we need $40,000 to catch up completely. You need to learn the difference between rescue and assistance. I'm preventing total collapse while you build something more sustainable. I tore off the check. This comes with monthly progress reports, financial transparency, and respectful communication. And if we refuse these terms, then you leave my house and solve your problems without my involvement. The silence was deafening. We accept, Sienna finally said. Perry nodded, his jaw working. Excellent. I held the check just beyond their reach. You'll have this tomorrow, after you've written and submitted the public apology. Consider tonight your opportunity to reflect. I walked them to the front door. One final thought, I said, as they stepped onto the porch. You assumed I was weak because I was grieving. You confused kindness with stupidity and patience with powerlessness. Perry turned back, his face twisted with impotent rage. This isn't over, Harold. You're absolutely right. It's not over. It's just beginning under new management. I closed the door and returned to the living room. In my study, I opened Martha's photo and smiled. I think you'd be proud, I told her. They wanted me gone, but I'm still here, and now they know exactly who they're dealing with. Justice, I discovered, was a dish best served scientifically. If you like this story, please like this video, subscribe to the channel, and share your impressions of this story in the comments. To listen to the next story, click on the box on the right.